Hello, my name is Anthony Wall. And to YouTube and to YouTubers, I swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help me God. Not just a God, because people don't believe, so what's that mean? Nothing to me. I don't believe in God. I still swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth. On the Constitution, unabridged, and to the hyper additional nature it stands for. And right through those founding abridgments, you guys have self value because you have replaced that which our founders told us to understand first about why and how, not to entertain anybody, pretending that we know the name of any of our founding fathers, plural. Besides James Madison's name specifically, he's the only one we know. Let alone to entertain them pretending other and sensing for the breaching method while being used remotely to, pretending not to fathom that there were plural founders that had to counter-extort and force everyone to be part of the Declaration of Independence, force everyone to be part of the Constitutional Convention, force North and South to bring up the slavery as a subject, which was against the law to bring up a subject like slavery, like legitimately, or like abuses of all women, abuses of all Native American difference, the word native, the black pupils, whites of eyes, communications of nature itself, when nature is not only criminal insidious in its nature, that was only allowed to be syntax as told to defend itself as nature slash s, as collusion slash s only permitted, but timed collusion slash s, all the differences. Everyone was paying attention to the parts of it, even all together. But even when they played all together, everyone blaming the white man. There are Native Americans that are whiter than me. I mean, I'm usually not this white. In other words, we should make three tribes. And it will show us that there are things that we could agree about. And it will show us that the value of voting has been given value that it is not value as. Just because someone's a Democrat or Republican doesn't give them means to fake and hide exceptions. And this is not just because it's an individual. These presidents slash chiefs are given fake information right through administrations. I recorded this. They have remote uses of the sense and sensibilities of every single person on the planet. That's why and how the suburbs look alike from America to Russia to Ukraine, even though they were built before America's founders were born, the basic design of them. And some of the houses still standing. They were built for a torture, extortion, slavery method. And rather than understand clear the day, real simple things about it, and all the experts use their knowledge of good and evil to get over on us, as they were shown to. And then they just hide that because nature is demonstrating that. So they blame it on other things, others self-evaluate, even with not even realizing. Because at the founding locations across America, they came through campuses that were themselves a bridge for that, to sense for the breaching method. Everything the breaching method did since before religious messengers, even if they were made up. Nature shows it's true anyway. Nature shows right where and how no one brought up how the databases were criminally foreign influence. And clearer than day, we could all discern. People jump in and pretend, oh, well, there's a list of us that don't, in other words, polling. We all agree we want clean water. We all agree that there hasn't been syntax for it. The whole ocean's polluted. If there's mercury, arsenic, forever chemicals, all that, even in the fish now, there's more than that. And the suburbs were designed for a torture, extortion, slavery method. And this is where the people who attack the campuses and the people defending them are collusion/S too, making it pretend it's debatable. It's not debatable. If they tried to debate that, it would bring up how they're replacing what James Madison told. They have identities of logic, natures of reason, dependent. As behavior racketeering worse than war crimes too. While tactically delusions rot. That's why we need experts on delusions. Instead, we have organized crimes there. Many people tied to and as one's name Leahy. Whole family with one's name Lombardo. Affected confessions on my street since I was a kid. They have collusions with proven first force child abusers, leaders of kids. They even have the youngest kids in their family. Collusions between next to campuses and all natures of crime scenes. These are people with multiple courts involved with this Leahy family. Brian Silver is involved with multiple prosecutors and judges, and people involved with Venezuela too, and drugs and medicines crimes with overt criminal enterprises, some Los Alito themed, even right on Facebook and with phone crimes. But these are people with the intelligence community. Brian Bonin too, and his neighbors who sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They all kinds of federal evidences crimes. Also, his time collusion/S with use/S of names next to body dumping spots and conjunctive to them and to that. And as people conjunctive to the root 3 and to that, like the state judicial branch officers. And so they switch names and forge names into branch, and they've been stacking fake transcripts into databases as collusions with wire crime acts and methods to make things look real. Digital crime acts and methods. Whiting Forensics has collusions with people with Facebook personally involved with them, but also with people with the names on all sides of criminal and civil cases. In the courts where they use criminally here and there at the same time, the police forms, the interbranch family members, concentrated roles of mayors and conjunctions to them, and different natures of conjunctions to them, and then further hyper additionally with ground like next to. Is collusions like with a former mayor of Gold, is one of the people involved with a former director of the FBI, a former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, has collusions with a whole bunch of people directly and indirectly involved with Whiting Forensics, with various natures of crime scenes, and with Sandy Hook campuses, with sexual and medical offenders of kids, and with a serial killer involved with their campus, and with people from Puerto Rico named Cintron, involved also with a retired police chief, Cintron, and his family, and his reported daughters, intimate ties with a name Mazzucato, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. Never saw him on one of the campuses I went to in my life. In other words, they have rules with further with a principal being and with confessions, and they hid what I caught them doing also with Michael Emmett with the Board of Education and with multiple police forms, and there are security guards involved with multiple criminal enterprises in other countries. All these different countries in the news also have collusion/S with and as ones involved with the World Trade Center attack. Increasingly, educators of that I never had, and ones that try to put fake ties, fake nature ties to people with their whole families, cover up life progressions tied to it. With a Harris family, and a Ray Reynolds was in my class. Increasingly, people tied to them and the street next to that, which is Valley Crest in Wethersfield, Connecticut. There's a John DeMorrow, a Joe DeMorrow, and a Paul DeMorrow who recorded, confess, demonstrate, confirm. I never had a conversation with their parents. They sought me out. They have my fifth grade teacher has collusions with people with all kinds of natures of organized crimes. And actually, and they've been pretending it's their roles. That we have the right to lie. They're lying about their motives because they're leaking. They're confessing to me in other countries but they're confessing to a hyperforeign that's there too. It keeps countries A through Z. The only people who cooperate them, blaming other things, others, ourselves for things that it causes and keeps. Like people speaking about policies and economics and empire being used to measure and maintain. We don't even have James Madison's communications. The only founder we know the name of. We don't have it liberated yet. In other words, they painted themselves in corners. They can't afford to have everyone examine, and up front, like let alone online, the syntax of the American history book inside the school book depository associated with the assassination of President/Chief Kennedy. No, you guys can't have an identity of sophistication speaking for the law necessary. That you have a nature of debate necessary to speak about the difference of president or chief, which is Native American or colonist. The whole world over was already possessed by a torture, extortion, slavery method, and everyone had to be roles. It wasn't just Native American against Native American. And increasingly, the courts recorded themselves self-value collusion/us. They're only capable of it relative to how they were child abused. There are people in the British Superior Court who have recorded, confessed, demonstrate, John Mayano, recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed, and others that were put in 2 times. I took a cooking class. People in the class were facilitated with predicate acts and child abusers, leaders of kids with crimes at and next to the people's houses, and sequence shifts. I had nothing to do with John Mayano. I didn't even know who he was. I know his name was repeated to me by Ray Collusion before he graduated. Ray Collusion came into my grade when I was in 4th grade. And he moved into a house 2 houses over from me. There's 2 people at least with that name, Ray Collusion. and on YouTube too. These are people directly and indirectly involved with the Joe DeMoro, and with other people with the name Della Fera, involved with multiple courts, judges, prosecutors, their family members, victims, advocates, involved with overt criminal enterprise and private ones. People putting fake things in the databases of campuses. Their families, intimate ties, the ones of other people. These are people that use the right to lie, pretend they knew me behind my back to my family members since I was a kid. People I never had communications with. Oh, they say other. They say other because you've been keeping a fake conversations with them as ones involved with the World Trade Center attack. A whole bunch of people tied to some Mendez police who attached me to fake conversations with one at the Wethersfield police station. I never a word of conversation with anyone there. I had my friend get my Saudi ex get me a police report. That was a hyper additional falsified police report for the same arrest. I still haven't been able to read a police report for. I know that one was fake. I never had a word of conversation with a Mendez officer. He has collusions also with a Bob Chase, with Whiting Forensics, with people I've been planting evidences on my street, with sexual and medical offenders of kids. That judges, prosecutors, doctors, people in state police families, foreign and domestic, interstates, with the same house/S with extended family members, collusions with them with that. Phil Collusion is involved with the Bob Chase. These are also people that brought in the name Napolitano. They should not have hid what they brought. My campuses recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, and things. And they hid these things from my parents where they shouldn't have hid things. A Collusion family and a DeMoro family brought in a Napolitano, a girl too, so I didn't say anything about it. And they knew I wouldn't do that. That's how they stick people, they frame people. Then they try to make it look like they know me. They'll try to make it. I used to make it look like I hang around with them because I went to the prom in the same limo with Ray Collusion. And then I never even got to talk to my So that girl has people tied to former director of the FBI. She doesn't know that though. That use the right to lie where they don't have the right to lie about me. And these are people that are putting things in predicate acts in databases that I never even had classes with. And they're doing it with former mayors, a former mayor Gold, and people with the Parks and Rec. A whole bunch of people are involved with a whole bunch of people at and next to Harvard Hospital with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, even people from Cuba involved with psychiatry. They're criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw, interagencies. Oh, you're not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. It's recorded since founding, too. They fake conversations with me. These are people with Channel 3 News. Attached me. I'm a YouTuber. They attached me to fake conversations with themselves. And when they had excuses on Facebook, they can't afford to have discern what came first. They're not just oh, well, we're starting fights. This is our motive. That's not their motive. They have roles with the word. They change what I put, and then they put the word extremism in. Then I did it too to give them an excuse. They lie further. These are people involved with the World Trade. I was next to the World Trade Center towers, and was in the court next to it. The court's identity was used remotely too. It was proven that from inside the court, they had post-dated legal documents that had been handed into the court timely and stamped in the court on time, stamped to the court. From inside the court, they had insidiously been post-dated to appear too late to the panel of judges. That I witnessed both sides of the case and their sources. And the court itself now too has had roles with sequence ships also faked for them interstates with the same names involved also outside my hotel building's front door. Right when I was walking out it. Claudia Scalora is one of the ones involved with also police that have been forging names and switching names and faking ties to me with people named Scalora, with my neighbors. And also involved with a shot towards me, hit the grass near me with a pellet gun the day before President Trump was shot in the ear. And CNN made it look fake. CNN has collusion/S with some Secret Service people at Central Connecticut State University. And various police forums on Facebook, they brought up like a name Kerr. A Kerr also with New Britain Superior Court, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have a Kerr family involved with people with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and victims advocates involved with sexual medical offenders of kids, a John DeMoro and a Jerry Kerr. A Jerry Kerr was also brought up by Officer Jerry Miller on Facebook, planting evidences on all sides of my house. Also with an officer and an Inspector Mike with the fire department, that there's a female fire, and they won't identify himself legitimately. They're involved with wire mail crime methods too, with a fake phone transcripts, including with the people with the phones at the networks and their sense and sensibilities. They're changing fake what people say and make it like they won't allow anyone to have a conversation. Then these are methods that are manifest, that a breaching method showed the identities, the names of the people, the sciences. They already used, and they have to hide it the way it shows them because they already did, and where they are active now, they have to be fake. And it shows them they have to look forward to being fake at countries A through Z. Here ain't the need vaccines. I shouldn't have to beg. In other words, I was next to the World Trade Center towers and noted all kinds of things and collusions. And since to hide that, because I recorded them before then too. And they recorded themselves. I recorded this not trying to. And I'm saying, when I say recorded, I'm saying hyper evidentially. But it's also digitally recorded. But they are also recorded, changing what's digitally recorded, hiding it and obfuscating it as collusion/S2 with many countries at the same time. The reason we have the border countries and so sick all this time with AB and the syntax and all that is because they have collusions with differences already. They have to hide that. In other words, the people countering the campuses saying, oh, our founders owned slaves. and the people, whatever they say, the array of things they say. That's why our founders directed us to not pretend we know the name of any founder besides James Madison. It's also because while they're doing that, it's the breaching methods, measuring and maintaining self-value collusion / that's replacing how there was counter extortion there. If you're not speaking about the counter extortion that forced everyone to help James Madison's plan, even though it was against the law, the law, not just against the laws, the difference of them with that with the collusion or the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists propagated to hide behind the differences of guilt and blaming everything and other, even colors themselves blamed for things that nature keeps you demonstrating. Two, the suburbs were designed tactically to nature to cause negative value nature progressions, acts of natures, and people that have no means to overcome it, to try to overcome it. That's why since before cars were invented, there were homes that are still standing, and it just fits in with that design. In many ways, not even as good. And it was designed for a torture, extortion, slavery method. Oh, that's debatable. You guys are debating things that are not even debatable, and you're getting away with it because the names of the people the science is. They have tactical abridgments, specifically to maintain them incapable of defending their logic in nature and of affording syntax for the Constitution unabridged. This is about hyper-additional nature. This is about exceptions and exception nature, the way nature shows it, the way nature is all the different species bodies. It shows us that it is generating male, female, and other species bodies, of individual bodies, a species volume science thing that neither us nor them invented. All exceptions, exception nature come with demonstration / S of the same thing. And how it is exception nature. It is not our species body, is not the others except for how it is anyway. But it is an identity of volume that is unlike any other one, while as each one, which is part of how it is functional being, hyper invisible but still discernible distinctly from how it is invisible but still discernible. English was revealed to be taught this way. In many pray. The words, the parts of speech of English grammar, the subject, the verb, the names for the verb plural, they're about the invisible but still discernible / hyper invisible but still discernible. That's what we could discern. That's what we're discerning. Like two of the names for hyper additional for a verb are the participle natures, the present participle and the past participle. This is also the body of the hyper invisible but still discernible. The parts through that is discernible through how the parts of it are bound. Just as the three parts of time that's gone. To an extent, we know it was true always. Time that is now active, to an extent, we know it is true always. The value of seasons that are not even here yet, even if they never get here, we know they are only increasing value, even though they're not here yet. Because there is an identity of forever nature that English and that the other ancient languages were revealed by following how it is functional, being hyper invisible but still discernible as itself, distinctly from how it is invisible but still discernible as itself, and with the / between it as a distinct third identity of hyper invisible but still discernible through how it is the body of what is the value of the difference between, for example, the difference between male and female and or between the present participle and the past participle, regardless of one if they are used in a sentence or not. This is about the identity of volume that is an only increasing identity of volume. And it is only further positive unto itself here. Or our value, our special difference is forced from here. But as forever nature, the story of heaven and hell comes with cipher to be deciphered. When Jesus Christ says he is the Alpha, he is the Omega, the ancient pantheism is about this. One identity of hyper invisible but still discernible, with the rest of its complete identity of relationship to itself is inseparable from the individual parts, and then further distinctly from the group parts, and then further distinctly from the simultaneous, like the species body part. Like why and how even fish have two eyes. Then they must not be too thirsty, but I'm saying we hunger, we thirst like the other animals, the birds. We have systems of bridge. See that we have A through Z have been shown to talk about and with nations and blame too. Leaving out the breaching method. We don't have blame in the breaching method. Even historically, through time, they blamed other things, others ourselves, for what to blame on criminally foreign influence / hypercriminally foreign influence databases, specifically to keep things like criminally foreign influences blamed wrongly until they were our truths more and more. But then truths used for lies and in order to screen lies. A bunch of intelligence people, Eric Jensen. I'm sorry I have to use you. You guys sought me out with this, and with your educators, and with this Dillon family, planting evidence on all sides of my house. And in other words, Eric Jensen also has people in a line from Central Connecticut State University with the back roads. And Wethersfield police have a Joshua Stryker and a Joshua Julian and a Joshua Schumack and a Joshua Schumack's mother. I never had a conversation with her. I don't know her. They tried to make fake exception, sought me out with a Mark Violet and others involved all along Route 3, conjunctions to it and to that, also with the religious spots on all sides of it, who have collusions at 3 spots at the end of the Burlington Turnpike, with intelligence families at Trinity College and Central Connecticut State University in Yukon, involved with federal evidence crimes on my street in Wethersfield, with a whole bunch of people tied to them, and a 6th grade teacher who wasn't my teacher. They tried to make a fake exception by having me go over there for 2 classes, and he did a trick with mold, putting fake things in the databases. He has something to do with the military at Central Connecticut State University, a Bernstein family, and his roles with people from Russia and Ukraine with corners of streets too. Also with an O'Brien family and a Kalal family. People from other areas sought me out to record capacity demonstrate because they've been putting fake. They do things where they put totally faked phone transcripts and ties between kids and adults, and then they try to make fake exceptions too. So then people go back and forth and they screen the breach myth. They bring other things, others themselves, and apparently for other reasons than just the ones known, observably rather. But see, what we could observe instead has been used to use remotely the names of the people of the sciences, including of the law, and the people countering them, and the exceptions are exploited by this breaching method that has us measured and maintained where we are forced to be. And when? at each age and nature of our factory nature. That's why we all agree about things that we could do better than free and way better than we're being charged for. We can make temporary moves that will make lasting positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures. We can make space means come out of nowhere. By the way, we do all things, especially if we do it as a human species body of individual bodies, getting on the same page and blaming the same hyperforeign breaching method, even if it's not a standing hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise. We could still make the syntax to charge it as having been such, as having been an identity of relativity / hyperrelativity. For example, that which had slavery roles only permitted northern colonies and southern colonies distinctly, but non-distinctly too. And that's self-valued. That should have been self-valued when people attacked our founders and framed them for slavery. You should explain that. You should explain how our founders didn't even have the security to let us know their names plural and why. There was a breaching method entrenched. People pretend they had the free speech. People had to pretend they had the free speech to an extent, had free speech. Otherwise, extent/s, otherwise they would have been censored. No one was permitted other than to make subject treatments like about slavery. No one wanted collusion/s with that, except for how, for example, anyone wanted to speak up about it, you had to do such inside internationally monitored conversations that were collusion/s with it. At the same time, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the companies involved, international companies didn't even get along with themselves. I learned in notes at Central Connecticut State University. In the book, I learned that James Madison detailed about how and why they knew that's how they made it. If anyone spoke about the women, things like that outside the thing, that person was sensed. It was sense and sensibilities, to use Jane Austen's phrase, as criminal insidiousness nature, to use the laws. But we have not heard the law voiced unabridged. But we have to re-educate the names of the people, the scientists, because they were child abused through these campuses. The same way I caught them collusion/s with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and tactically distinct natures of organized crimes that were our recorded being and haven't been consciously exploited at next to each age and nature of campus, including fire campuses and medical campuses, including fire campuses, families running into high live regressions. On a mass scale, things are manifest like where and how, relative to how all ages and natures of investigators, like when people say something, the time, oh, you say that, when he's walking, you saying, and I say that, they're making confessions at the same time, not just to me and to the other Americans, but to the whole, to the breaching method. But also through all the identities of fake integrity, even when they are real integrity. More and more, all real integrity. In other words, if this tortures every human difference, including it tortures multi-front consciously at countries A through Z, the differences of the people of the branches. If you're a judge, it tortures you as that, and the people, the positions of those campuses, sickly distinctly. So it could counter the counter. To put it in boxing, in other words, it showed them how to speak about the law. And then it knew that nature would demonstrate that. And showed them that you need to hide that and how to hide it by giving them things to specifically design for that. specifically designed as collusion/S, cultivation, for the propagated only allowed, manifest, names of the people the science is abridged, forcing trigger, say whatever, oh, we'll sue then. The interbranch switching names, forging names. They're putting fake things in databases at the same time with all sides of criminal and civil cases, the news, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, even when they're not in the cases involved, too. Then they have to hide that later because they all put the same self-valid sequence shifts as criminally foreign influence, fact, truth, nature, quality, aspects, nature. The reason we have needs for experts has been inverted. So intelligence has been stacking. There are only three branches of government that have shown a certain type of victim. Same way, overt criminal enterprise, private one, same time. It's not the way they, as a shock and awe when you describe things, too. Names of the experts, names of people of science, names of the people of religions. The religious books say for a reason, too, up front. The Old Testament says only defend right here, where the names of the people of the sciences come together. It says only. Never heard one person speak about that. Bunch of fake passions and emotions regarding the Bible. You guys, the same fake ones we can't even get up, and delusions raw. Can't respond for someone who was in next to the World Trade Center. Notice things that were also, Wethersfield police have people with the name Scalora involved interstates with them with that. Names on all sides of that case. Increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slander, just attached to fake, communications, including the court, by people with Central Connecticut State University in Britain, Connecticut, and the other campuses involved that are all like Trinity College. And these are the ones with a whole bunch of people involved with untimely death at Trinity College, even if made up. Other ones at the same time were involved in 1 years apart in time U/S of that. Collusion/S were involved. Also with the people with the overt confessions on Facebook. And then they take my Facebook pages. And then they made fake Facebook pages pretending to be me, etc. Facebook has all kinds of collusion/S with people all along Route 175 from the founding locations in Old Wethersfield. Also with people from Washington, D.C., and with the state judicial branch offices and the state corrections offices. Used remotely where there are foreign also involved because there's a hyper foreign involved here in there. And what it did and does is sometimes totally the criminally foreign influence / hyper criminally foreign influence of our own, but it's constantly that. And the other side, the difference of it's their own against their own too, with uncharged industries. This is also relative to where people speak about jobs. Some because they don't have jobs, but the people inside all those big, huge black brick buildings in New York City, like for example, in the background of behind rappers and rap videos. American culture. You're supposed to discern how our founders, what they declassify, about why the suburbs were designed tactically to nature to be a landscape theater, only permitted to defend themselves. If by and through self-value collusion/S were the only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures, more and more, as if to be self-value collusion/S with criminal insidiousness natures a means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and styles of logic note, and natures of logic note, propagated, self-cultivated, incapable of defending that and of reporting to be, let alone to be protracted. Short words with syntax proper regarding our country's gravest impositions. They are criminal insidious natures of impositions. They are hyper criminally foreign influence. They were propagated only permitted self-cultivated roles by that which had slavery sickly non-distinctly, northern colonies and southern colonies, and then America's founders were born. And they declassified for us why and how they wanted nothing to do with it. Why and how there's a breaching method that was measuring what everyone said. It was measuring and maintaining everyone in an extent of collusion /S against themselves and against everyone else. Otherwise, that body was sensed, including if that body was a majority of people, and it was adapted to easily, including if it was everyone. And then any grouping of state of syntax nature, it uses them even easier, tortures them individually grouped and together. It's torturing the UN distinctly from our own side with whiting forensics and their roles with psychiatry and how they've been placing. They can't afford to have databases. They've been putting fake things in databases. That's part of statutes and precedents too. Criminal foreign influences / hypercriminal foreign influences. It needs things. The hyperforeign breaching method, that which had slavery, northern colonies and southern colonies. And then states, too. Our founders also declassified about how the breaching method forced both the North and the South to have collusion with slavery. And nobody allowed to speak up about it without drawing, because it wasn't just that. It was multi-front. It was all kinds of fronts on every human difference. Native, even black people's whites of eyes. Of eyes, who disbelieves. So please get me off CBS, the fake conversations with them. The intelligence community is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have wire crime action methods with phones with them too. So I can't call them on the phone. They have digital crimes with them. They might have faked digital communications with me because they weren't at all too. Because there are people involved with planting digital evidences, changing, faking, hiding it, covering up, recorded how used remotely, criminally foreign influenced uses of all ages and natures of investigators, of everything that comes before the courts and came before them. We have black pupils, whites of eyes. So if we have forgiveness, because these are good people too, that came through sick campuses that were used for criminally foreign influenced things and a method /S of it. Increasingly, people tied to John Mayano, as a complete stranger, sought me out on my street to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm these things after, that's also why they made me stay back. They lied about that to make it look like I had a conversation with that teacher. I never did. She made confessions. These are people all along Route 175 involved with medical corruption and names on all sides of criminal and civil cases and depositions through time, who had collusions with the World Trade Center attack, with the names involved, with other natures of organized crimes associated with the place, and with investigators, where they're hiding how they have legitimate roles being, directed with acting professors even involved, because the whole campuses are used criminally foreign. If you guys don't follow mandated law, it's also the proof of it. So you can't get on paper legitimately. These are people interbranch with the Prince Superior Court, Harper Courts, other courts of Connecticut. The district court has collusions with them before and after the World Trade Center attack at West Hartford location. They effected confessions to me and requests for help for their roles with people too, increasingly tied to my grammar school that weren't even in my class, increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me, by people sticking more and more fake things in databases into cities too, and with campuses of all ages and natures, names next to them connected. Increasingly, Middlesex Community College, before I went there, there were a bunch of people that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They're involved with sequence shifts too regarding that. And Vermont has a number of people involved with a Ray Reynolds, with a Joe DeMauro, and Eric Jensen, and a Mike Roberts, involved with more people like a Robert Rodriguez and places associated with them, with the intelligence family growing, families foreign and domestic, involved with also hyper-foreign, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, child offenders. How are you? How are you, Mike Saha? What is it? What's going on? How you doing? This is one of the things we should do is make three tribes. One of all Native American tribes that are recognized. One of anyone who has any portion of Native American heritage, and one of citizens that want to respect the chief part of the title. But see, to respect that, everyone has to understand how James Madison and our founders declassified that we were not supposed to entertain anyone pretending that we know the name of any of those plural founders besides James Madison. They knew that would be done as it is being done, enforced. Also, to sense for the breaching method, self-value collusion /S replacing how and why James Madison and the plural founders had to counter-extort and force everyone to help with the Declaration of Independence, force everyone to help with the American Revolution, force everyone to help with the Constitutional Convention and with the Civil War. They had to force the North and the South to bring up subjects like that, even though it was against the law. And they wouldn't be able to do it right because the breaching method was still entrenched. Even once he was then a president /chief also, James Madison, the only founder that we know was a president /chief also, he still didn't have free speech as a chief /president. We're supposed to explain this. No one explained it because the breaching method showed your experts how to explain it because it never stopped being entrenched, not just at our country. When people say, when that's why one of the reasons they're still blaming white man, while Native Americans are white too, is because to the extent of roles with the names of the people, the scientists pretending they have integrity, they were child abused. You guys have our founders' words replaced. There are proofs that Native, even if it was they weren't in on the ones as those plural founders, we don't know who they were. It was their resistance that enabled it, that natural resistance, because it was a torture, extortion, slavery method /S, collusion /S that everyone was forced to, only permitted roles with. Otherwise, that body was sensed. People are only permitted to sense or be hurt too if people were breaking those rules syntactically or nature-wise. So do you guys ski? Do you ski in Sweden? Are the girls blonde there? Are there always that's how it is portrayed here in America. When I was a kid, they used to portray Sweden. But right now, like for example, I don't know if you ever watched Judge Napolitano, Judging Freedom, YouTube channel. He covers apparently there's sustained starvation in Palestine, and nobody knows how to speak about it because countries A through Z, they've been operated uses of names like speaking about it as if it's a robot or if it's a human, while A through Z have blamed other things, others ourselves, for what our founders and for what even religious books demonstrate to us to blame on the abridgments and collusions with them that were forced from off campuses. But then there were our hyper additional collusions /S. There is that guilt that no one wants, like black pupils, whites of eyes. No one wants to replace what nature communicates with it. But we are only known, having been through systems, pretended practical, pretended sane, pretended empathetic. In other words, do you ski? Do you ski, Mike? Saha? Because I know you have mountains there too, I guess. I know not that much about Sweden. But I know countries A through Z. Other ways, I know countries A through Z have missed and have blamed on other things, others ourselves, with nature itself and with founders, not just in America, directed us to blame on human fact-achieving nature breaching method. That which forced in America, before America's founders were born, there were more than 13 colonies. There were the original 13 states, but there was inside more than 13 colonies. America's founders, plural, unnamed, they had to counter extort using James Madison's plan, as we were taught to tell it. I mean, as was declassified, and we were directed to tell it. But the other is still told. They even, in other words, that's the first principal thing. They're replacing how there was counter extortion forced. And it's not because they don't want to speak about how they were forced. They don't like dictatorship because they had roles with slavery. And the breaching methods roles with slavery. Overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the three branches. There's a witch trials place in Wethersfield, Connecticut, next to where George Washington had to come to counter extort with James Madison's plan and with the leverage of the plural unnamed founders behind it. And we were supposed to be honest about the extortion of George Washington and about nature, because we pay attention to what was entrenched with the laws at the time when there were witch trials reported to have been. Even if they were completely made up, they're about that torture, extortion, slavery method that was against every human difference, including what helped it at the same time. I haven't skied in many years, in other words, but the natures, the whole ocean is polluted. Even I believe I read somewhere or saw somewhere that Joe Rogan, a famous YouTuber, he went to the doctor and there was arsenic because he was eating sardines. Sardines have arsenic now, apparently, and there's mercury in the big fish. Probably arsenic in them too. Probably plastic. The whole ocean. This is nature's been demonstrating things to us. Nature communicates with negative or positive value nature progressions, acts and natures. We have taken positive, negative identity, difference, therefore names and exceptions, systems, tactical ulterior. From that could speak for and as the value of the Constitution unabridged in the hyper additional nature /S as humanity, as the republic for which we stand, that it only gains the value of positive here, or as our special difference forced from here, as forced space nature transfer, as lease of Hades, for how ancient pantheism revealed this. Before the sciences became tactically abridged from off them more and more, and more, they could no longer afford to be the short words, let alone their protraction, as they were not obligated actually by nature to be. The names of the people of sciences, the campus Marcius of the republic for which we stand, since them ancient times. We must prepare our brains for minds. In other words, because it has been abridged. It was about the one identity of value / value progression, the identity of relativity / hyperrelativity. They've been using people with relativity theories with the theory of relativity to measure and maintain, and with other theories too, to measure and maintain self-value collusion /S, like with American history replacing how and why our founders directed us. only to refer to James Madison as our founder. And he's the one to explain that why and how no one wanted rolls with slavery. He's the one to explain why and how everyone had to be rolls anyway or be sentenced. He's the one to explain why and how they did not have the security to let us know the names of the other plural founders. Knowing this, we could discern the experts being and having been used remotely, using the knowledge of good and evil, for example. Not defending that part, because that's a part in the Old Testament that comes after the part that says only defend right here, where the names of the people of sciences will come together. The part that jumps before it. You ever notice how the delusions wrought takes? People with delusions wrought takes on American history or on religions that jump in with passions and emotions dishonestly because they have collusion/S with sequence shifts tied to it. They have collusion/S with location/S uses, where it's collusion/S with remote uses at countries A through Z of all ages and natures of investigators. Branches of government intelligence. Same time as overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and news. All that is recorded by WFSB, by their fake transcripts of me, fake ties to me, and then playing games. Oh, so they just have a person on the phone who'll just go, I don't have time, and then they'll just change, fake, hide what you say. Then, in other words, they're changing and faking, hiding digital evidences. All kinds of natures of organized crime through time. The WFSB and many people they have collusions with will tell you when you ask them properly. In other words, this people have been putting fake ties to me, fake behind my back since I was a kid. Every campus I went to, they know they have untimely deaths and murders and names next to body dumping spots. They have time collusions with years apart, totally different body dumping spots. Same ones with WFSB, fake news. Corners of the streets near them. With boxing is arts that move our hearts to show our soul/S. In many ways, I tell it best, boxing. Boxing makes no sound but shush. And/or it prefers the shush sound, while martial arts semi-prefer the shush sound. And while wrestling does not prefer the shush sound, I'll gather around. And they are about fighting by the rules. But the rules have been abridged for so long that no one had been had been capable of fathoming how this is about how the ancients revealed there is one way/S to reveal evolution's fruits, gifts, and means out of nowhere. Otherwise, to discern that only criminal insidious natures of positives are being made out of negatives. But then with the discernment of that, nature does too also show even better means to cause positive value nature progressions acts. It means out of nowhere. It goes down to, it is all things. So anything you want and need, it wants and needs it. See, but not through other systems. Not through abridged systems, therefore abridged constitution. There are people that say they took their oath, they put their oath to a constitution that's invisible but still discernible. But it comes with it, and these are criminals. See, they don't know how to speak about the Constitution, which is about hyper-additional nature, which is about those original abridgments. Hyper-additionally, from the nature that has been prevented speech since before then, but before our foundings, not just in America, we could discern how in other countries The same hyperforeign breaching method that had slavery rolls only permitted northern colonies and southern colonies through other countries, through other international companies, through other overt criminal enterprise, private one, terrorists, people speaking about crimes that were whole predicate acts with facts method /s, predators. Then and now, fake branches bow and fall, but there is seed. There, public surges forth. Believe, don't disbelieve. Vaccines, it teaches things. I never got my professional boxing license. I had many fights through USA Boxing. I need to get a professional boxing license. That way I could train harder. The World Trade Center attack happened. I was next to the World Trade Center attack. I was next to the World Trade Center towers the morning of the attack and was in the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center towers the morning of the attack. And the night before, I was in a hotel next to the World Trade Center towers. CBS News has collusion and had collusions intercities of Connecticut and interstates with the other countries involved with the attack and with Wethersfield police and state courts with all sides of criminal and civil cases and the courts themselves and interbranch families, overt criminal enterprises, private ones at the same time, a whole bunch of, with the same sequence shifts, identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake motivations. Too, for why and how they would say things, not say things, and time use of location /s. So these are interbranch refusing to identify themselves. And they have remote uses of the sense and sensibilities. Collusions with Fox Connecticut News, too. The same ones involved with Channel 3 News, with predicate acts. They are people with the intelligence, with and as intelligence families next to Fox Connecticut News to a time, involved with all kinds of criminally foreign influence uses of databases and natures of and methods of organized crimes and scams. Hartford Hospital has a bunch of people involved with digital crimes. Where there's a Judge Killian and there's a Dr. Zeman who's recorded involved with a Leahy family with multiple courts and people seating juries, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. There are proofs that it was with the people in a 2006 district court case involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, and his co-defendants and their family members are increasingly people who have collusions at campuses I went with names that also planted evidences, collusion /s, and have that ongoing on all sides of my house, and how they already did that. And then with their investigations, investigators of such are already haven't been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. One's named tomorrow, also involved with them with FBI director, with home break-ins in the area, with the intelligence families and locations they brought up, with the Judge Smith is involved with overt criminal enterprises and people who abused Heather Hansen and others along Route 3 to force them to collusion. Route 3 conjunctions to it into that, like the state judicial branch officers. In other words, the Venezuela thing has to do with how here and there, and in Cuba too. Cuba had roles with torture before the World Trade Center attack and was effectively pulled off too for all kinds of wire crime acts and methods and mail crimes acts and methods and predicate acts and methods used to cover up such that they use the words like radical and extremism for. So we have to address how the sciences experts individually grouped in together are still criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. And this is relative. They can't afford my speech, me to have free speech, so they steal my identity. So Channel 3 News is attached to little kids through time to fake ties to strangers with a whole bunch of different countries. They have roles with a whole bunch of people named Scalora and tied to a Scalora. And they have multiple boyfriends at the same time of girls that were forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to collusions on Covington Street with Nabrit Superior Court, Harper Court's families and intimate ties, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, foreign and domestic military, their lawyers, a whole bunch of people tied to a sub-Bajario too, planting evidences intercities, with with people tied to and as child abusers, leaders of kids, and their roles with him with that. Not legitimate roles with intelligence families, the sub-Bajario, and the people next to Central Connecticut State University, involved further with the principal being upskirt nature. I recorded with much worse with Subby Bajario involved with it too, and others with the Joshua Julian and others that were planting evidences on my street with them and next to the campuses through time and with databases. These are people involved with all kinds of databases corruption and with the state judicial branch offices conjunctions to that and to that. I never saw Subby Bajario on the inside of campuses. Never saw him on the inside of a campus. I just know that he had a collusion with digital crimes and federal evidences crimes, other natures of organized crimes, with child abusers and victims advocates who have collusions with child abusers of mixed natures. There are other people I was involved with at the same time, increasingly too. But get them on paper, one name and secrets, please, Americans. Don't make a YouTuber beg to be heard about serious things like that. World Trade Center predicate acts. Fix the fake news, the fake World Trade Center attack evidences of Channel 3 News. They have a whole bunch of people tied to them named Violet and Demora and Phil Collusions is further involved with the Bob Chase, with confessions regarding falsified police reports and their delusions and their collusions with the principal child abuser and sexual medical offenders of kids, federal evidences crimes, evidences rackets with whiting forensics, also with state police families, interstates, involved with the one-time collusions with the overt criminal enterprise, private ones. In the campuses I went, and conversations with teachers I never even had, and ones I had behind my back, conversations on fake. Ones I had that I didn't even have personal conversations with. They're using these schools for an organized crime method /S that has tactically distinct natures of organized crimes, used consciously for a method /S. You guys have roles with predicate acts with facts methods, self-value, while you're being and haven't been used remotely. We have black pupils, white survive. Don't disbelieve, repent. Thank you. People, please force the fake news real.